Welcome to Commerce Talks, the podcast where we discuss issues facing Ontario businesses and the Ontario economy today. I'm your host, Daniel Tisch, President and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. Today's discussion is going to focus on one of the biggest challenges we face in Ontario and Canada right now, and that is energy. How do we keep Ontario competitive, support growing communities and industries, and meet our climate goals all at the same time? Ontario's government strategy, which is called Energy for Generations, signals that the Ontario government understands the scale of what's coming. It lays out a long-term vision for new nuclear, for expanded renewables, for transmission investment and Indigenous partnership. And all that really matters. We really love the ambition in the plan, but ambition and execution, of course, are two different things. And in the business community, we need both. Electrification is picking up. It's being driven by advanced manufacturing, by transportation, AI and data centers, and of course, population growth. And that means that Ontario is heading into a period of rapidly rising electricity demand, but also growing pressure on our existing system. After years of relative stability, we're now facing some real capacity shortfalls, just as more parts of the economy are looking to connect to cleaner power. But challenge also brings opportunity. Ontario already has one of the cleanest grids in the world, and that gives us a huge advantage as investors, employers, and communities are looking for places that can offer both energy security and lower emissions. But this is not an advantage we can take for granted. We still have critical gaps, such as in distribution upgrades, in transmission planning, in regulatory coordination. And if we want to build the grid for growth, we need a few things. Timely investment, not just in energy production, but in the wires, the connections, the approvals, and the long-term planning that's needed to get power where it's needed, when it's needed, and at a price that people and businesses can live with. This isn't just an energy conversation. It's also a competitiveness conversation and a productivity conversation. So, how can Ontario turn energy into a growth strategy that's reliable, low carbon, affordable, and built for the future? What are the choices and trade-offs and opportunities ahead? And what will it take to get all of the stakeholders together to power Ontario's next chapter? I'm delighted to be joined by three amazing colleagues who are going to help us unpack these questions. Jessica Linthorne is President and CEO of the Nuclear Innovation Institute. Priya Tandon is President of the Ontario Mining Association. And Carrie Ann Large is the CEO of the Whitby Chamber of Commerce, one of our fastest growing regions. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm going to, let's see, why don't I start with you, Priya, because obviously you represent an industry that we're counting on as a province, to help to power our competitiveness and our growth in the future. And we see numbers that are eye-popping, right? That our demand for electricity in Ontario, it's set to grow by 75% by 2050. So what's driving that? And what should businesses be thinking about right now?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks, Dan. Happy to be here. And maybe I'll give you a bit of a sense of who I represent. With the Ontario Mining Association. We've been around since 1920 and represent the operating mines in the province, of which there are many, as well as mine contractors and service providers and consultants that are active in the industry. And we advocate for kind of a common voice with government, in particular in Ontario. I would say from an energy perspective, top of mind for our members as large industrial users, often top of mind in our submissions to government. And that's because it's around the second largest cost input for their operations. There's 37 active mines in the province right now across different commodities and regions across the Northeast, the Northwest. We've got a couple salt mines in the South, but also 35 significant mineral projects in the pipeline. And so that's important from a forecasting perspective. We've been working quite closely with the IESO. I sit on their strategic advisory committee, and I'm focused on affordability as being one thing that's top of mind. I would say, though, for an industry like ours, the mining sector and other large industrials, the key aspect of Ontario's energy system, I kind of look at it threefold: affordability being one, stability and predictability is key to drive that investment, to attract the investment that's needed in the province.
Right. Yeah, no, it's got to be predictable, reliable, sustainable, affordable, all these things.
Yep.
Carrie, I'm going to turn to you because you represent a fast-growing community. What do you hear from local chamber members about electricity, and what are they concerned about? What's on their mind?
Yeah, and like you said, Dan, we're one of the fastest growing regions in Ontario. Our chamber alone in Whitby is home to over 700 businesses, and we're very lucky to have members such as the Lexicons of the world, the OPGs. So we're a very clean energy focused Durham region, but we're hearing lots of things: population growth, electrification, AI, data centers, all those things that you referenced in your opening remarks there, Dan. And they recognize that Ontario is growing very quickly. It's going so fast, and all of our communities are seeing this electrification, and even advanced manufacturing is seeing that need. But it's the reliability again. Like we're seeing businesses invest because of the reliability, and if that reliability is not there, they're going to go somewhere else. So that's a really key driver in helping us grow is having that reliable grid. Yeah.
Well, and of course, a big part of the reliability of the grid in your region and every region is nuclear. And maybe I'll get you in on the conversation, Jess. We hear a lot about how important it is that the grid be reliable and low carbon. And so those roads are leading us to nuclear right now. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about what that looks like from your perspective.
Baseload power. Right? Like that sums it up. It's the reliability, the affordability, and that baseload for us in Ontario. I'll maybe just take a step back. So the Nuclear Innovation Institute, so we're a member-based not-for-profit organization, working closely with our founding members, which include Bruce Power, BWXT, Cameco, Can-Do Energy, ES Fox, and Kinetrix. So at our organization, we are looking at sector transformation projects. And so that's where we look at how do we save time and money and enhance safety opportunities for our workers. We're driving some really interesting projects around computer vision and some tooling and prototyping, but then also a program called Kaizen for Nuclear, that's just, continuous improvement, which we can all do every day. We see that. So that's some really exciting work. But then the other side of our organization, really, we refer to as industry voice, and it's advocacy. It's reminding people of the reliability that nuclear provides. It's reminding, provincial and federal governments of what we need to continue to drive this growth, to be here as a sector, to respond to all of the reasons why we're seeing this demand for energy, and that we can respond and we can do that together as a sector. So lots of good work happening at the Nuclear Innovation Institute. And, this conversation on reliability is so key. That's a piece that we've really unpacked as an organization. And we talk about that reliability because we know it, we see it. 60% of Ontario's grid is nuclear. 30% of that power is coming from Bruce County up in rural Ontario where we are sitting. So
that's why you call it the clean energy frontier.
That's right. You beat me to it. The clean energy frontier region
I've been there
Bruce Grey, Huron. We have the world's largest salt mine as well. I've had the privilege of exploring the salt mine, which is fascinating.
In Goderich.
In Goderich, that's right. Yeah. So Goderich, in particular, is a community that's within our region and highly engaged. Yeah. They have a port. Dan, we connected at a port event in Goderich. They've got port, they've got rail, they've got the world's largest salt mine. So there are these really exciting opportunities in our part of the province. And what we see and where we are running is really waving the flag. Our community is excited about the opportunity for new nuclear, and our business community too. Yeah. And I think about, Chamber of Commerce and connections there. But I'm really happy to be here, Dan, and thank you for including me in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go into what Jess was just talking about a little bit more deeply. And I'm going to come to you on this, Carrie, because, she was talking about the importance of electricity and attracting businesses to a community, right? And so maybe talk about that a little bit with me, with us, because you obviously work very closely, I'm sure, with the local economic development teams. What's the role of electricity in attracting businesses to come to our communities and to build here, to create jobs here, to stay here, to scale here?
Yeah, and I think it comes back to reliability. Again, we were talking about that. That's so important. It's becoming, what we're finding is it's becoming one of the most important site selection sort of factors in why businesses will land where they land. They just don't look at taxes and those things anymore. They're actually looking at what kind of infrastructure a community has now. Because they want to support long-term growth, right? That's a big key for them. And reliable energy is a part of that. Businesses are paying attention to how communities are invested in that infrastructure. And that's why they're landing where they're landing.
Right.
Yeah.
let's talk about mining from that perspective, right? So I'm sure you work with a lot of global companies all the time, I'm sure, as well as local ones. And when we're trying to attract mining investment to Ontario, how does electricity and availability of electricity that's reliable and predictable and sustainable and affordable, how does that factor into the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, we've got global companies, we've got Canadian companies, but even within Canada, they compete with neighboring jurisdictions like Quebec and Manitoba, who do usually have kind of better deals when it comes to their electricity pricing regimes. So I have maybe a couple of examples that have recently come up. I had a member text me, for example, wondering about an energy advantage program that's in place with government and if it's going to be renewed. Because those are the kind of inquiries I get on a weekly, daily basis, because those companies are planning ahead 10 years out for a mining project that could be, the life of a mine could be 20 plus years. And so they're always planning. They're planning out their capital investment. Are they going to expand? Are they going to extend that life of mine? And the energy pricing in particular, as well as the predictability, is so key for that plan. We have another operator in the Timmins region, which is another huge mining camp. And, they recently acquired another site from another company, and it's going to allow them to expand. But to be able to plan those capital expenditures for the added processing, bringing up a new mine or reinvigorating an existing mine is so key for their planning process. And so sometimes we're competing with South America, sometimes with Asia, but sometimes within Canada. I often get those calls like my counterpart in my company that leads Quebec is getting more investment if we don't, resolve X, Y, and Z when it comes to either energy pricing or other aspects.
Right. Thank you for saying Z, not Z, by the way. It's one of my peeves. I like it. Let's be Canadian here.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Energy Advantage program. Talk to us a bit about that so that our viewers and listeners can better understand that.
Sure. So we've got a Northern Energy Advantage program that the government has had now for a good 12 to 15 years, and it provides a rebate for northern industrials. Right. So it's largely been uptaken by mining companies, forestry companies, some steel in the north as well. And it's key for that planning perspective. Like companies take that rebate into account, plan it out in their bottom line, and they know it's there, and they know they can plan. But, where the predictability comes in, I got the most calls, I would say November, December, January from the last 8 months, where bills were double. And it's because there was supply constraints in the winter, and, natural gas was, providing the energy, and prices are high, and that was translating to bills. And then come spring, we got a lot of rain, hydro was being used, bills came back down, but that up and down is what, really can interfere with further investment in the province.
So that's an example of where government policy intervention or program intervention can be helpful in attracting and retaining that investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Let's look, Jess, at some of the other things that are driving consumption, right? We hear so much about data centers, for instance, right now.
Yeah, we do.
I got an email today from a chamber leader just talking about, data centers potentially going into their region and the dialogue around that. So there are a lot of issues there, but fundamentally, one way or the other, we're going to see these sources of significantly increased consumption. What are you seeing, and how are we preparing for that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're seeing that curiosity. Like we get calls as well, and people interested, or developers or investors in data centers, or how do we support this AI use in the province, and what does that mean for the grid? The Nuclear Innovation Institute, we released a report last year on why we need more nuclear to power our data centers, and I mean, I think that speaks for itself when we think about, again, the baseload power, the volume of power that nuclear generation can add to our grid to power these things. Recognizing, just the state of the economy, and as the economy shifts, and as AI, things like computer vision projects, as I noted earlier, as these things are adopted by companies and start to be used more heavily in industrial settings or what have you, we'll see that increase as part of the demand increase. And so let's get the grid ready for that. Let's be mindful of where we're heading here. I think that it's our opportunity to be proactive, and to power these things will take more power. And we can do that with more nuclear, for certain. I also had a conversation recently with Communitech out of Waterloo region, and they had a similar conversation where they, as the tech sector, us as the nuclear sector, I've said, hey, we've got a good conversation here, right? Like you guys, you recognize and understand the potential and the growth. They've got brilliant minds and startup capabilities, and they're curious about the nuclear sector because they look at us and they go, wow, we're going to need you, but hey, you're also going to need us, right? So it's an interesting time in the economy. But I would encourage listeners or viewers to check out that AI report on the Nuclear Innovation Institute website. Yeah. It's fascinating, lots of data. I'm not going to share all of the stats with you right now, but if you are curious about what some of that data looks like and the how and the why, it's worth a read. Yeah.
Right. Well, Priya, we worked together earlier this year on the release of the Ontario Chamber's big mining report, Ontario's Mining Future 2030. And a big part of course, what we looked at together is the North and some of the challenges in access to power, access to resources, access to talent, like some of the barriers and challenges. We also talked about relationships with Indigenous people, nations, and communities. Talk to us a little bit about the role of energy in that conversation and in Northern development more broadly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from a transmission perspective, we've seen huge progress. I've had the pleasure of joining Minister Lecce at a few announcements recently where he's prioritized those Northern Ontario transmission projects, whether it's to Red Lake, to Greenstone, the Gateway of the Ring of Fire, the Barrie Sudbury transmission line, the Waasigan, the Wawa to Porcupine. They're all going to benefit mining operations in the future and years to come. I think I give Hydro One so much credit for the way they have integrated equity partnerships into how they negotiate with First Nations when transmission projects are being planned. I think it's first of its kind in the province, and they're really taking a leadership role and showing what can be done in the energy industry and what can be translated to other industries. From Indigenous partnership perspectives in the mining sector, it's so key to support the electrification, to get communities off diesel, and to continue to build our genuine, meaningful partnerships with First Nations. We look at Indigenous procurement, we look at Indigenous employment, and resource benefit sharing and resource revenue sharing, in negotiations as well. So it's a great complement when you have the energy sector leading from that transmission perspective, and then continuing the work that the mining sector is doing as well.
Right. Do you think we're coordinating well enough? Like there's a lot there where we've got, there's different orders of government that have to coordinate. There's engagement that we're doing with the business community, with investors, with Indigenous communities. How do we coordinate the system better?
It's such a key question. And I mean, in our sector, we talk a lot about collaboration because we have to, right? We need to be collaborative. And when I think about, Bruce Power, as, energy producers, and they're producing clean power for us and getting it on the grid, they're not doing it alone. They've got, their team, they've got their major suppliers, they've got sub-suppliers. We see the supply chain. And actually we've done a little bit of research, and there's over 440, I think, suppliers across the province of Ontario. Yeah. That supply the nuclear sector. Yeah. And so, we think about assessment growth and job creation and all these things, that this economic development, and the support for our business community, direct and indirect from the sector. And so it's going to take lots of us to do this. And I give Minister Lecce a lot of credit. I really do. I mean, as a minister, he's doing a fantastic job at bringing us together. Priya, thanks for that comment on the transmission and that priority that Minister Lecce is moving in Northern, because I don't always see too much of your sector because I'm looking at my sector, so this is nice to be connected. Yeah. But what I also see from my sector and the leadership of the provincial government is making the investments in getting us ready to go here.
Yeah, I think it's proven to be very effective to have a single minister responsible for both energy and mines. Right?
Yeah, that's great.
Because we're seeing a lot of we're seeing a natural coordination, and that's imperative for us to be successful in all spheres here.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not one organization is going to solve it alone. It's that collaboration between government and business community. And I'm lucky I get to hear what's working, what's not working, like what could be a barrier, and then turn that into advocacy. So it's that coordinated effort of all levels.
Yeah, Carrie, tell us a little bit more about kind of how businesses are seeing this whole question of having policy certainty, right? I mean, it's my friend Blake Hutchison, who's CEO of the OMERS pension plan, he talks about how for him a quarter is not 3 months of the year; it's 25 years. It's a quarter century. So businesses increasingly are making very long-term decisions about whether they invest in a community. So how important is the policy certainty to that conversation?
I think it's very important. Yeah. Like you said, they're investing long-term. They need a clear energy policy. Yeah. To move their goals forward. They're not just going to invest in a community, where there isn't policy.
That's right.
It's super important. We hear it all the time. Up in a little community just north of Whitby, it's still part of Whitby. There's no power there, so we're working on, getting those lands released so that the grid can serve all of these lands, because there's such an economic opportunity there to invest.
Yeah. I mean, it seems inevitable that with more demand, we're going to see higher costs, higher prices, right? And you were talking, Priya,
just about
about how we manage that. But is it inevitable that we're going to see?
I think we're already there, particularly on the industrial side. Yeah. I think, and it's incumbent on all of us and government to, know the facts and then plan programs accordingly. So I mentioned NEEP is one of the programs. It could probably use some modernization to be relevant to today's status of things. From a rate mitigation perspective too, I think we do have to be mindful of, where rates are at. I think our electricity pricing regime kind of has to have the view of it's strategic infrastructure. Our energy system is strategic infrastructure, and it should be there to attract and retain industry and economic drivers, and it shouldn't just be a market commodity. And, I think it's a great step. IESO has linked kind of their long-term energy planning to economic growth. And it's, I would say unprecedented for us as an association in terms of how much involvement we have in the planning with IESO and, exposing them to our members so that IESO can understand what the upcoming operations are going to be in the North. And, my involvement on their strategic advisory committee. I think, providing that influence and insight is going to be important for getting at that near term. We see the nuclear build-outs. We're absolutely supportive, but there is a bit of that anxiety and fear of, well, how are we going to pay for all of that, right? And it's just going to go up and up according to OPG's forecast. So I think we've got to continue to work with government to ensure that it stays predictable and manageable for sure.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask each of you then something that is keeping you up at night and something that gives you hope when you think about this question. Okay. So we'll start with the hard one first. What do you, when you think about energy, what's worrying you?
I think the opportunity, I'll turn it a little bit on its head.
You're such a positive person. You're already going to the positive.
Well, I had actually a conversation on like the collaboration.
Yeah.
And the sector, the nuclear sector is incredible. I've only been in the sector for 5 years. My background sort of varied, but jumping into the nuclear sector is just it's tremendous. It's the people, the companies, the leadership, the collaborative spirit, the sharing, right? That Bruce and OPG have, like this OpEx on working together and learning from each other, and as they move through major component replacement, and we think about new build, watching the small modular reactor build, right? So there's a lot of this sharing amongst nuclear players. And so I think the opportunity, this continued collaboration, it's there.
Are you worried, though, that there could be moments, there surely will be moments, or already are moments, where stakeholders aren't aligned on things because they have different interests, right? Is that kind of what's on your mind?
Not too much, because I will say that, high boats float high tide, or the saying, right? Like when we think about nuclear across the country too, we think about Canada and potential new builds, and we have conversations with, Sask Power as an example, or Energy Alberta. Like some of these players are saying, hey, tell us a little bit about how it's going. Right. As a sector, we all want to be successful. Yeah. Because we need to be, and we will be, and we have that competence and the confidence to continue. I guess I'll try to answer your question. What keeps me up at night? We need to stay on time, on budget. We have to be innovative. It's not a choice. It's not a maybe. It's not a nice to have. We have to be. And part of our role at the NII is to help our founding members be ahead of schedule and under budget. Mm-hmm. We're doing that in lots of ways with lots of our projects and lots of our programs. But we cannot be complacent.
Right.
Not for a moment.
Yeah.
We can't be complacent with safety, not for a moment. We can't be complacent with the way that we have done things. We have to be innovative as a sector. Yeah. And that's our role, and that's what we're driving. And I see it. And there's openness and there's willingness from the nuclear sector and from leadership to try things different, to understand, to work with the regulator to ensure that we are able to get the job done. How do we get it done on time and on budget? That's great. We've had good announcements between OPG and Bruce Power of being ahead of schedule and under budget. Unit 3 at Bruce came back online 7 months ahead of schedule, saving $150 million for the ratepayers of Ontario. Yeah. It's fantastic.
It's a great story.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
And so we have to not be complacent. Yeah. That's what I would say is my
that's
thought.
Something that I got to say I worry about too. That whatever. I mean, trade friction with the U.S. is resolved,
absolutely.
So everybody thinks, we can go back to the way things were before. No,
we cannot.
Gary, what's keeping you up?
I think you almost took like all of the words out of my mouth because I'm. On the exciting side, I'll start on the exciting side, is because I get to be so close.
Nobody's following my order.
Right? We're just so positive. We're just so positive people. But being so close to OPG, like Whitby is right between Darlington and Pickering. Yeah. So I get to watch the refurbishment that's happening.
It's awesome.
Over in Pickering. And then I get to watch Darlington come back online and all of this incredible work that they're doing with the SMRs. It's phenomenal. And what's even better is that we're seeing so many new businesses pop up in Durham region that are feeding, to your point, the nuclear sector. So that's like amazing. Mm-hmm. But again, keeping me up at night is, are we doing it on time and on budget?
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's worrying you, if anything?
I think it's a little bit on the complacency side too, but it's let's not miss this moment.
That's right.
Yeah. So, mining's having a moment.
Yes.
For the first time in a long time, the public is noticing mining more. They're understanding critical minerals. They're talking about it at dinner tables, and government, all levels, are putting such a spotlight on it. So let's not miss the moment. There's some great action, some great policies being put forward on the permitting side, and really highlighting Ontario as that environmentally responsible, safe, ethical jurisdiction to do mining. Yeah. And I don't want us to miss that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting. The Ontario Chamber did a mission to Washington, D.C., which included some leaders from our energy sector. And, one of the Americans that we met on Capitol Hill actually said, look, when you talk about nuclear and you talk about critical minerals, you're speaking our love language. Like, that's a direct quote. And I thought that was really interesting, right? It's an asset for us competitively, and certainly an asset for us when we think about how we can offer more value to our trading partners. So that's such a good point. Okay,
Sorry, one quick thought on that. One thing we haven't talked about yet with regards to nuclear is domestic supply chain.
Right.
And so as Canadians, just when you were referencing that, and then for our neighbors to the south to look up, but what we have here is we have energy security because we do have a domestic supply chain.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to flag that because that's something that I'm very proud of as a Canadian, and in particular in the nuclear sector, but that is something that we can all be aware of and be very proud of, because that offers us the economic resiliency piece, the energy security piece is huge as well. So
and it's long term, and it supports so many jobs directly and indirectly across the province. Right. So that's great. Yeah. Okay. So something that gives you hope, the easier question.
I think Ontario's getting so much attention on the nuclear front and on just the energy front, making memorandum of understanding with other jurisdictions and really being looked at as that jurisdiction, like I mentioned, from an ethical perspective, that can really contribute to our allied partners globally. And I'm just hopeful that mining is proportional to that success. And I think energy is a key pillar in the success of mining. And as long as we continue to see that success in energy, I think we can do the same for mining.
That's great. I am really inspired by the medical isotope production that happens at Bruce Power and OPG. Yeah. And Recently, last week, actually, I had the privilege of touring the hot cell. So there's a new hot cell built at Bruce Power. So this is a piece of infrastructure that allows some processing to begin on site of these isotopes as they come out of the reactor, and a little bit of processing before they move along on their journey to becoming radiopharmaceutical drugs that are treating cancer. Mm. And, and I was standing there looking at this giant concrete box, for lack of description, and the robotics involved with it, and the technology involved, and this piece of infrastructure. And it's not lost on me how we are leaders as Canadians, as a nuclear sector, when it comes to medical isotope production. Mm-hmm. Bruce Power has a very unique and powerful partnership with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation called Gamzukwin-Akazawin. And this is a business joint venture on the isotope file at Bruce Power. But it's what we reference as reconciliation, right? This is an economic reconciliation effort, taking action, this leadership from Bruce Power. And when I stand in the room with members of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and we are, learning about this hot cell infrastructure and what this means, I'm filled with so much pride. Mm-hmm. And as a Canadian, and we hear the stat that 40% of us will be impacted will have cancer. Yes, 100% of us will be impacted. Right, somebody we know, we love.
Yeah, and I can see certainly how much hope we should all get from the combination of economic benefit, social and public health benefit, and also having more equitable partnerships with Indigenous communities. I think it's a win-win-win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Carrie, what gives you hope?
I'm going to turn it just sort of back to local and back to Whitby just for a second, because we're doing a project in Whitby that is just phenomenal. And I'll invite you to the grand opening when we do it, Dan. It's going to be in September.
Us
but Whitby,
too, right?
Yeah, of course. You can come to Whitby. Absolutely. We're opening a brand new sports complex.
Oh,
and
great.
When this was designed, and I'm going to read this just because I don't want to get it wrong. It's targeting LEED Gold and zero carbon building certifications by eliminating fossil fuels for heating and incorporating renewable energy. That's fantastic. It's such forward thinking. Mm-hmm. So this infrastructure and these choices that builders are making, short term are really going to have an effect long term. Yeah. So it's really cool to see that happening and right local in our community.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there we go. Yeah. Another story of local benefit.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, I sort of feel that we're talking about energy, and you've all brought such energy to this conversation. And I can't thank you enough for that. It's a conversation that, of course, doesn't end here, doesn't end today. It's one we're going to continue to have at the Ontario Chamber with all of our members and partners, including all of you. And so let me just say thank you to each of you, to Carrie-Ann Large, CEO of the Whitby Chamber of Commerce, Jess Linthorne, who is CEO of the Nuclear Innovation Institute, and Priya Tandon, who's CEO of the Ontario Mining Association. The conversation continues. Join us next time for another episode of Commerce Talks. I'm Daniel Tisch. We'll see you soon.